Ever since the overwhelming success of his 2018 breakout single Overthinker, Enzo has gone on to push the boundaries of his sound and has amassed a loyal fan base in doing so. But the road to get to where he is now was full of challenges and roadblocks. It required a remarkable level of self-belief in a time where he was disappointing his family and had no external signs of future success. But despite the lonely experience of being the only person in the world who understood his full potential, he was able to persevere and become an inspiration to his fans and everyone around him. This is the story of Enzo. Mike Inzano was born in Chicago in 1994, and that's where he spent his entire childhood as well as a portion of his young adult life. His father is a chef who now runs a catering company with his mom, and he actually made some appearances on the Food Network back in the day, but unfortunately I couldn't find any of those clips. His dad also carves ice sculptures with a chainsaw, so between that and cooking, I think we can at least see a little glimpse of where Enzo got part of his creativity. The other part of his creativity comes from his mother's side, as they're a very musical family and they're all classically trained in instruments like violin and piano, so both of his parents were likely influencing his creative nature, whether intentionally or not. By the time Mike was age 4, his mom put him into piano lessons with a very intense teacher who would sometimes kick him out of lessons if the teacher felt that he wasn't giving enough effort.
It got to the point where I'd have to do these tape recording practice sessions to prove that I was practicing. So,
wow.
Yeah, it was intense.
That sounds stressful for a young kid, man.
He wasn't really a fan of piano lessons, but looking back, he does recognize the key musical foundation that was formed, which helps him to this day. A few years later, he asked to start taking drum lessons because that interested him more than piano. His parents agreed, but they also wouldn't let him quit piano lessons, so he was doing both simultaneously until age 12 when he was finally allowed to stop taking piano lessons. Aside from just playing music, he also took influence from it early on, as he was a huge fan of the Titanic soundtrack as well as plenty of classical music. By his early teenage years, he went through what he calls in his own words, a pretty intense emo phase.
Growing up, I went through every phase in the book, went through a pretty intense emo phase, a metal phase, punk phase.
This led to him drumming in a punk rock band with his friends where they would play covers of bands like the Red Hot Chili Peppers, Green Day, and the Rolling Stones. They also wrote and released a few originals as well, but he was bullied for that at school.
I got really bullied for the first song I made because, the lyrics were stupid. They were cheesy. I'm 14 years old, and people at my school thought it was stupid, so they would walk past me whispering the lyrics as I walked by in a very flattering way.
Oh, dude, that's so mean. That's
I know.
He began to discover electronic music around this time as well, as he heard Tiesto's Elements of Life album at the end of 8th grade. Over time, he would go on to discover even more electronic music.
And my brother kind of got me into some other interesting electronic music like Mimosa. I don't know if you're familiar with Mimosa, but that at the time was some really unique kind of like bass-ish music. And that was like 8th grade going into freshman year. That time it was like Skrillex was just like becoming big. And so bass music was starting to finally get put on the map pretty significantly. Had never been to an electronic show until I think I was 16. I went to a Resco show with one of my high school girlfriends. Okay. And honestly, I hated it. I was like, what the hell is this? It was so weird and bizarre.
As much as he hated that Resco show, he gave electronic music another chance when his brother took him to an Alesso show, and from there, he was hooked. But while he was discovering a new love musically, he was still involved with bands, as he was the drummer in a metal band through high school, and to be clear, this was a different band from the punk band that I mentioned earlier. Apparently, this band was going to be given the opportunity to perform on Van's Warped Tour, which could have dramatically altered the way his life played out, but ultimately, it fell through. Whenever he wasn't practicing with his bands, he would work for his dad's catering company, which started in early grade school, going all the way through high school.
What is the hardest you've worked?
Aside from music, probably working for my dad when I was working for his catering company. I would work from like 9 till 4 a.m. sometimes, and it would be like physical physical taxing labor, moving equipment around and cooking food.
Apparently, he also used to dance competitively, but I'm unsure at what point this occurred.
You did used to dance competitively.
Oh, man, that's one of those questions. How did you know that? I did used to dance and like do some competitions. I could not dance now. I have like, I can move around, but I think I'm just psychologically not able to dance.
As high school graduation was approaching, he went through what every high school student goes through: the pressure to pick a career and have the next 60 plus years of your life planned out by your 18th birthday. So he decided to take the ambitious route by attending Loyola University Chicago to study biology pre-med. And once he was in college, he picked up a job at Zara for some extra money.
It was so bad. I just hated it.
After his classes started, it didn't take him very long for him to quickly become discouraged by the competitiveness of the bio pre-med program, and he ended up switching majors a few different times. During his freshman year, he went to a Tiesto show, and he also saw Alesso again for the second time, both of which piqued his interest in making electronic music. He soon after discovered that Loyola had a recording studio on campus, so he would skip class to spend time in the studio while teaching himself to produce via YouTube. But what if I told you there's a faster way than YouTube to become a proficient producer? Introducing today's sponsor, Barnyard Rex. Barnyard Rex is the premier one-on-one mentorship platform for producers to level up their skills. There are a lot of people on the internet who offer production lessons, but here's what makes Barnyard Rex stand out. All of the mentors are touring artists and working professionals, so they're coming from a place of real-world experience with an understanding of how to snowball your productions into tangible success. It's more than just watching tutorials, it's a personalized mentorship with direct feedback and guidance catered directly to your own goals. They have a full roster of mentors broken down by genre, from dubstep to house, drum and bass, and more, so you'll be able to find a mentor in your own lane. I personally have been producing on Ableton for 10 years now, and I was predominantly self-taught via YouTube for the first 7 or 8 years, but it wasn't until I had one-on-one lessons that I was really able to fill in the skill gaps that I was trying so hard to close. So I can personally attest to the value of having cohesive instruction rather than gaining spotty and sometimes incomplete knowledge from non-comprehensive YouTube videos. So regardless of your current skill level, whether you're stuck on a drop, refining your mix, or want a full roadmap for your career, Barnyard Rex is here to help by connecting you with mentors who have been through and overcame your same struggles. Spots are limited, so if you're interested in one-on-one mentorship, check the link in the description to browse their artist roster and book your first session today. Now back to the video. When Enzo first started producing in that studio on Loyola's campus, he was using Logic to make mashups as well as attempting to craft his own originals. By the time he finished what he calls his first cohesive beat, he knew that this was what he wanted to pursue as a career. He decided to go with the name Enzo, which was actually his childhood nickname. After his third semester at Loyola, he dropped out and moved back in with his parents, who were pretty disappointed in him at the time. By the summer of 2015, he was ready to officially launch the Enzo project, and he released his very first single, High Above, which was one of 2 released songs that he produced using Logic before switching to Ableton. Around this time, he was becoming more involved with other Chicago-based producers, and the community around him played a huge role in helping him level up his skills.
I had a pretty good circle of music friends, all trying to like do similar stuff. We definitely like pushed each other a lot, and it was good to have that community of people, trying to do similar things with a like-minded mentality. And it definitely, I felt like I had some sort of mentors in that time when I was first starting off, because there was definitely some well-established artists in Chicago when I was kind of starting out. But yeah, it definitely helped.
A few months after his first release, he dropped his second track called Brocane Camaro, released on Kitchen Records, and it is definitely the least Enzo sounding track of all time. In 2016, he started to gain some decent traction by putting out remixes and landing a manager who was managing his local artist friends, which gave him the opportunity to play opening slots for local shows in Chicago and Madison, Wisconsin. During this time, he opened for artists like Yellow Claw, Breathe Carolina, Marshmello, Cash Cash, and more. The majority of his opening gigs in Chicago took place at the Concord, as well as the Mid, which no longer exists. Throughout the following year in 2017, he continued to improve his skills as a performer while refining his productions. His second release of 2017 and his fifth official release overall marked a turning point for the INZO project. The track is called Visionaries, and it's the first track where we hear a lead that is strikingly similar to the lead in his breakout track Overthinker, which is indicative of him finding the beginning of his signature sound. Throughout late 2017 and early 2018, slightly bigger opportunities were coming in, which included an early slot at Spring Awakening and a night slot at Summer Camp. By this point, he had made somewhat of a name for himself around Chicago, but he was still struggling to break into other markets, though that was all about to change. In July 2018, Enzo released the track that was going to change his life, Overthinker, released on Lowly Palace.
With the real world.
The song samples a speech from Alan Watts, which Enzo stumbled upon while looking up ways to stop overthinking, and he immediately realized that it would fit into a song perfectly.
Do you overthink? Are you an overthinker?
Oh, absolutely.
What do you overthink about everything?
Less and less these days, for sure.
Aww.
But yeah, when I was early 20s, figuring out life and becoming more aware of certain things, you can easily overthink stupid stuff.
In his Reddit AMA, he disclosed that he personally reached out to Alan Watts' family to license the speech, which established a relationship for future use of Alan's work in his music. So after the release of Overthinker, towards the end of 2018, he started to break out of the Great Lakes region by playing shows in markets like Maryland and Dallas. At the end of the year, he was named an artist to watch by Billboard, with the article saying, quote, "He certainly has the talent to rise to headliner status." And that actually ended up being quite prophetic. Just weeks after that article came out, he signed with United Talent Agency and went on tour as support for Adventure Club, giving his project nationwide exposure on the live front. By March of 2019, Overthinker had over 2 million streams, and Enzo was brought out to Los Angeles for a Brownies and Lemonade show, as they're known for putting on some of the best talent early in their careers. Throughout the rest of the year, things started to accelerate as he released more tracks and got even more live exposure. This included his first release on Wakan, Let It Slide with Bluka and Leo Napier, which ended up putting him on the label's radar, which then led to him releasing his debut EP with them a few months later called Multiverse, which then led to a slot at Wakan Fest later that year. That was followed up by a handful of opening slots on LS Dream and Schlump's Universal Wubs tour. Moving into 2020, he joined Liquid Stranger for his Ascension tour, which Enzo credits as a major stepping stone in the growth of his project. However, the latter half of the tour was canceled due to COVID-19, which posed as a significant challenge for Enzo. He had just begun to build some serious momentum leading up to the lockdowns, and not all artists were able to gain that momentum back after the pandemic. But regardless of the situation at hand, he continued to release new music, and Overthinker was gaining serious momentum, hitting 20 million streams in mid-2020 and 30 million by the start of 2021. This gave his project the fuel to have a massive comeback after the COVID lockdowns were over, playing festivals like Ubbi Dubbi, Bass Canyon, and Lost Lands, plus he was starting to get booked for his own headline shows all over the country. By the time 2022 rolled around, he kicked off the year going on tour with LS Dream, which was followed up with a collab with LS Dream called Blasta. Later in the fall, he got to play Red Rocks for the first time, opening for Big Gigantic's Rowdy Town, which was followed by the release of the lead single off of his upcoming EP, Earth Magic with Elohim. This track is definitely my favorite Enzo track, and it marked a considerable expansion of his sound, exploring a more chilled out and ethereal side of Enzo.
It's pretty unique and darn magical that we have this right cocktail of things that, even just us as humans, a product of the universe, we are able to have a brain that can perceive these sounds and have these feelings and emotions from these sound waves that are traveling through this atmosphere. And that to me is just like, wow, if that's not magic, I don't know what is.
He soon after set out on the Earth Magic tour, which was his first ever headline tour. He actually admitted in his Reddit AMA that he was more broke after the tour than he was when he first started making music. He wisely saw this as a make or break moment, and he had the humility to understand that this could be the only tour he ever did if it didn't go well, so he went all out on production to make it count, which ended up putting him in the red. But obviously that risk has since paid off. Throughout the tour, he released what were intended to be the final 2 singles off of the Earth Magic EP, Drift Like a Cloud, Flow Like Water, and Solstice, which actually features his own singing at the very end. Now, the reason I say that those 2 songs were intended to be the final singles is because that was the original plan, but he ended up releasing 4 more tracks a few months later. I'm still pretty confused whether this is supposed to be considered an EP or an album, as it's listed as an album on streaming services, but Enzo has referred to it as an EP, so I guess we'll go with that. But anyways, after the Earth Magic phase of his project was wrapped up, he decided to branch out even more by rolling out a house music EP called Side Quest.
All this bass in your face, yeah.
Moving into 2024, he was gearing up for his biggest year yet, which started off with the release of the lead single off of his upcoming debut album, Just a Mirage. A week after its release, he set out on his biggest tour to date, the Vision Quest Tour, with Vision Quest being the name of his upcoming album. 1 month into the tour, he announced one of his biggest collabs yet when he revealed that he would be making an appearance on Rez's new album, with the track being called The Descent. Later that summer, he released the rest of the Vision Quest album, which was followed by a flagship curated show at the Caverns in Tennessee, which has become quite a staple in dance music in recent years, and it was actually his 3rd time playing there, as he had opened for both Closey and LS Dream in years past. The rest of the year included his biggest festival season yet, with returns to Lost Lands and Wacan, plus EDC Orlando, Cyclops Cove, and more. As we move through 2025, this is shaping up to be his biggest year yet, as he got to check off a major bucket list item, a Red Rocks headline show. However, just 1 week before the show, he announced that he was starting his own record label, Local Void Records, which is a callback to his 2018 single, Local Void. The first release on the label was his 4th collab with LS Dream, Artifacts of a Higher Dimension. The day after its release, he finally got to set foot on stage at Red Rocks for the very first time as a headliner. At the show, fans were given custom Enzo sprouts upon arrival with his signature pyramid logo on them, but what fans didn't know is that they had lights in them which were all lit up during a specific moment in the show. Enzo put out a documentary about this Red Rock show on his YouTube channel, and I highly recommend checking it out because it really gives you an idea of just how much work and how big of a team it takes to pull off such a cohesive audio-visual experience at a place like Red Rocks. But anyway, in the past couple of months, he has added a few more accolades to his resume, including his first ever EDC Las Vegas, and he's set to play Bonnaroo the day that this video drops. Okay, never mind, I had to update this because Bonnaroo got canceled due to rain and the festival grounds being flooded, but Enzo did play a set at the Pinnacle in Nashville the next night on Saturday. He also recently dropped his 2nd single on Local Void Records, Nexum with Bluka. It's going to be interesting to see how this label expands moving forward, and if you're an artist and want the chance to be a part of that, head over to localvoid.com where you can submit your tracks. From skipping college classes to teach himself production, to headlining Red Rocks and launching his own label, Enzo's rise was built on vision and a relentless belief in his sound. He carved out a lane that is entirely his own, which has carried him to the heights he sits atop today, though everything he's built so far feels less like a final destination and more like the beginning of something even bigger, and I can't wait to watch the future of Enzo unfold.